Whenever it's, you just set a time and all, I mean, like, you know, I have a meeting, but other than that, I'll just walk away. Tomorrow is a great day. I have very few meetings tomorrow. I'm at Wednesday. Wednesday, but that is Wednesday or Friday. I know I don't have very Tuesday, Thursday.
Is Kathy, is she in? Ready?
Hey, Jim, good.
She just texted. Just texted, she's trying to get in, I guess. Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Kathy?
Oh, yeah, cortisone.
Just flag up.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right. I think we have 7 board members in the room and 1 on Zoom. So it looks like maybe Randy's doing his high school golf team thing. So we have a quorum. Let's see. Item number 4 says President's update for annual meeting. So I don't know what I need to update, but I do have a PowerPoint ready to go. We've got the election results in, so we'll announce those at the time. Jim Fox is going to notify the candidates, I believe on Friday. Is that your study plan? Okay. So any questions on that? Yeah, we do have a tie. So we're going to have it now. It calls for it uses the word draw, like from a hat to settle a tie. So we're hoping to have and Kathy is at our election committee will be traveling. So I think Bill Kearns, hopefully we need to ask Bill if he's going to come to the meeting. We'll have him hold the hat since he's on the election committee as well. Let's see. Approve the minutes, item number 5, approve the minutes on February 22nd. So I see we had one update there on the funds from our 6-month fiscal year. Anything else we need to aware of? No more changes.
Thank you.
Okay, somebody had a chance to review those minutes. So do we have a motion to approve? Okay, Jerry C. moved to approve the minutes from February 22nd. C. seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Kathy, raise your hand. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Let's see, Clark and Crystal, financial update.
We'll let Crystal take this. She has been working on this. I'm gonna let Crystal do this part of what we're saying, and then I'll finish up a little bit, and then we'll go to the art asset, and I'll finish up on that one too.
Okay, the whole purpose of this meeting was to go over the 2021 budget items that the POA department had to come across and said that the budget that we have right now will not cover what we need. And so we kind of made what I call a wish list. And of those items, the first one was the North Star, and it will impact my department for the admin. And that was to run dual systems once we go live with North Star system. We had initially said that we would probably run 3 months of dual systems, but after talking with our contact with North Star, they really feel like we will only need to run the dual systems 1 month. So instead of asking for $16,000, we're asking for $5,464. The second item that
Hang on a second. So what's the preference of the board? Should we kind of take these one by one, or do we want to go through them all first and then say yes, no individually? How do we want to do that? Anybody got a preference?
I would suggest that we go through the format, because the amount of money that will be the ultimate request will be elastic, because there's a handful of things in here that are must-dos. There's a handful of things that should be done. There's a handful of things that it's our intent to do. So this has now become a timing exercise as it relates to forecasting for additional funds in the organization. Having seen some of the February numbers that the lodge particularly performed very poorly due to weather, et cetera, this forecasting will become really rather key in the development of what we need to do. So it would be my recommendation to the board that we go through here and check off a handful of the items that this group, approves. I suspect this will be back on the agenda May or June as we go through. Because to go through here and say, okay, Mr. Community Manager, we're going to get $198,000 that we really don't have. It is not the precedent, it is not the situation I want to put my board in. I want to be able to keep it chapter and verse with this. You've had the history with your current treasurer of monitoring this very closely. This is a significant, lots of moving parts for the new treasurer that's going to be inheriting this. So it would be my recommendation that we go through there, like you said, Rick, and we will check off 3, 4, whatever the number are that makes sense to say, okay, approved, we're going to up this, we're going to lower that, and we want to demonstrate to you, the team that's in the room right now, that we've really crunched the numbers, we've sharpened the pencils, we've taken a look at where we think the real needs are going to be. There are 2 big ones in here in the $50,000 plus category. That's really the meat and potatoes of it. And I'd like to give it back to Crystal as we go through that. This will be discovery and educational, and then we'll back up and open it up for conversation and debate for the board.
So the way I had listed it on my sheet was more or less the musts were kind of at the top of the list, and the optionals I was going to do at the very end. So the next one on the list was what I call the HR payroll support system. We were already in our contract with APS to handle our payroll system. They're the ones that we run the weekly payrolls through. During the early months of Brian coming into the community and me taking over as the controller, we discovered that we were very much in risk whenever it came to HR because we didn't have proper procedures lined out and set in stone. So we started asking questions of our current payroll system. Hey, do you have the HR ability as well? And they did. And so to add the HR benefits module to our current AP system, it costs us up front $5,050 per set. The current budget was $13,261. That was to run our payroll system. The monthly, in order to add the HR part of it, was just an additional monthly fee, and that's where the $17,806 comes into place. So yearly, all we're asking is for the increase our monthly AP bill by $4,545. So combined, to add that module, it's going to cost us $9,595. And if I'm not mistaken, we signed a contract and went live with that new module on February 1st. So the next item is related to chemicals or fertilizers, and that is Brian Brown for the golf course. Right now, we have a budget of $96,000. He is in a verbal agreement with his company, and it would be $152. Now, whenever he told me it was going to be $152, I was like, man, you spent a lot of money on chemicals. But I went and looked and pulled from January the 1st of 2020 to December 31st of 2020, and he actually spent $131,000 on chemicals and fertilizers for that 12 months, even though he only had a budget of 96 or 92,000. So in all actuality, if we had built the budget looking at his actual, it would only be an increase of like $18,000, you know, and he's wanting to add more coverage onto the golf course with this fertilizer. It's not that this is all related to increased costs of fertilizer and such. He's wanting to get more coverage.
Crystal, let me add to that. It is not only just fertilizer application and the scope of it, it is also spot applying more weed control to certain areas that he's identified that needs even stronger applications. I mean, stronger, not a stronger chemical, but a third or fourth application for weed control. And that's magnitude about $6,000 for that differential. To give the board a little bit of a appreciation for this, we participate in what's called a pre-purchase program with a company called Sargenta. Sargenta is an enormous conglomerate, and they base, much like many manufacturing companies, their production on what they have in terms of under what is contracted. Can we get out of this and only spend $96,000? The answer is yes. We will probably spend more than 96 because our rate, think of it in terms of rack rate, will go up. I cannot comment on it being significant, but it will go up and may jeopardize our capability of participating in the same program next year. It's not, a gun to your head scenario. It's a matter of their business practices in the chemical and fertilizer world, that they're not going to be doing these things 1 year on, 1 year off. That's their business plan. And it's been hugely successful for them. I mean, on the other side of that is you don't get the full story on when the money comes in. Now, we won't be making these payments until the summer, and we will have the product in the spring. There's an advantage to that, particularly for cash-strapped golf courses. We, on the other hand, are not in that scenario. So there's some nuance and sophistication here that Brian has been working on for 5+ years, has actually put together a program for the golf course rather successfully with what he has. He's just wanting to push it out a little bit more. And in my recommendation, I will put number 5 there as a check mark to go ahead, because his first major application will be broad spread fairways and roughs, and then a targeted application to the greens in April and May.
The next item is roads and bridges. And right now, Chris has a budget of $195,000 out of O&M and $250,000 out of ARP. It was explained to me that the way it's supposed to work is he's supposed to get $250,000 out of O&M and to match the $250,000 out of ARP to equal $500,000. Now, for whatever reason, the budget feels at 195. So in order to get Chris up to the 250, it's the $55,000. However, he has been doing a good job, and he is one of the few department heads that actually looks into, okay, here's what I have. I'm not going to spend any more. But by not giving him the $250,000, we also don't get as much coverage on our roads rebuilt each year. Because I believe you said 5-year plan to do all the way around. All right, the next item is the federal income taxes. Right now our budget is $31,188, and that's basically taking our quarterly taxes that I pay. And last year they were $5,200. Well, whenever I got my report from our auditor/CPA, our quarterly payments are now $77.97, so nearly $7,800. So we're already under that on that one. But also, we also paid $9,910 in taxes last year. So, and they say that that is being done because we're getting more money on our green fees and we make more money on our interest on our investments, so it's all taxable. So everybody knows that green fees were off the charts this year for 2020 because of COVID, everybody was out playing it. And so I have put in a proposed $5,000 to pay taxes that's above what my quarterly payments are. So I'm asking for about $17,000 just related to income taxes.
This would be an example of something that has a timing issue as we continue to monitor things. So this would, in my opinion, fall under put the question mark over it. Let's review this with the next team in June or August. It's certainly third quarter. It's not going to be due to them. There's an awareness component, one. Two, yeah, if there are taxes, you got to pay them. We're not going to get into extended, delays in paying, things like that. That's not the approach. But this is one in tonight's meeting in which can be parked off to the right.
And the same to be said for the next one, in the way of the.
Are you sure you can block that? Because those quarterly payments are already there. You can block the 5. I'm not sure you can block the quarterly payment.
The quarterly payments, but to adjust the budget, I'm saying we can get into the third quarter and then come back and say, we're going to add that full 5 because that's the way it's headed.
Okay.
I'm sorry, saying, yeah, you're talking $2,200 each quarter that we're.
Well, there's 2 components. There's the increased quarterly payment that you've got from that. And then there's the additional 5,000. That is the end of year, which she's estimating end of year in addition to your quarterly.
That's the part.
Yes. Yeah.
On the next one is our email system. Right now, we're currently with GoDaddy. And I know it's a small change, it's $1,177. But right now, we are on an antiquated email system. And our guys, when I say our guys, is our department people that have our emails. We're constantly having to go to them and say, hey, you need to clean out your email because you've only got 3 gigabytes or 3 megabytes of storage. And once they reach that limit, they stop receiving emails. And we go to Microsoft 365, it's my understanding that everybody will have like 5 gigs of storage. Most people won't ever touch that with what they're getting. And so we would like to, what it is we'll stay with GoDaddy, but they will migrate us over to the Office 365 or Microsoft 365. And get us up to date, not only with that, but one of the perks would be all of our calendars would be synced, and that way Brian wouldn't have to be having any make or a set of calendar of what's going on, here at the lodge, and I wouldn't have to, accept 2 or 3 different meeting requests for the same meeting because we're not all synced together. The cybersecurity, I noted it in orange because after talking with Brian, we decided that it's not a must. We could move it to the 2022 budget process and revisit it with our insurance guy and see about starting it in January and we did the budget process at that time. So it's not a must. The Christmas bonus for the staff. Right now, we're only budgeting $100 for each employee. And in the last 2 years, we have given each employee $200 at Christmas time. But that could be part for a later discussion and see how the financial, the fiscal year, finishes out with the COVID is still going on. Of course, like Ryan said, February was hideous whenever it came to sales. And so this is something that we could definitely revisit later on in the year. For the golf marshals and starter salaries, if you remember on the worksheet last month, we had it marked at like $36,000. Now that we're fixing to possibly start opening things up, we're looking at maybe cutting that in half. So now we're only asking for $11,891. I just did a background check for a third person. The way I understand is that they're going to do 3 people will work very hard to stay within the 40 hours or 55 hours each week that they're working. No overages, no overtime. They're hiring a third person so that if one person's out, they have a person to cover. So I'm not much into golf, but
So I'm guessing by opening up, we won't have a starter, but we'll have the marshals, starting marshals. But we'll kind of do away with the starter, and we'll go back to checking in back at the regular.
right.
Okay.
I've been part of this discussion on multiple times, and I've been part of the golf committee meeting on this, and we started out with the starter the last March or April, because we were in COVID, serious COVID, got a little more serious for us last month or two, but and we had the full lockdown, and we had a starter just because the pro shop was really locked down. We didn't want anybody going in there. We wanted the starter to give people information as they went off the tee. We stopped that about a month or two later, and we didn't have a starter. The reason this starter money is there was to ensure people were entering their names properly on the Chelsea system, and we were tracking those people who were playing golf properly. And so if we take that away, just because we opened up, we're defeating the purpose of what the point of this change was. But I still have concern on this change, because at one time it was $30,000, now it's 11. I hear we're not sure what we're really spending. We're not going overtime. Unless we spend the right amount of money, we're defeating the purpose of trying to manage the Chelsea system. If we don't have the starter out there in the right times and the right places, we shouldn't. We either don't do it at all, just let it run wild, or we do it right. Just passing on, haven't been involved in those things. or we have our head golf professional mandate this more and have this squarely on his shoulders an area of responsibility that would need to be continue to be monitored, because you shared with me, and I've laid eyes on the various abuses on the system, getting the tee times. I think we have 2 issues. You have one, the communication one, and 2, the whole maintaining and the checks and balances, because you're right, Jim, it's a little loosey-goosey on that. It really is.
And at the end of the day, what's really gonna drive how much we spend is how many hours these guys work. Right now, what they are proposing is from November to March, they're gonna work 40 hours a week. And from April to October, they're gonna work 55 hours. Now, it's gonna be split between the 3 guys, but at the end of the day, if they work that many hours every week, every month, we're gonna spend the $36,000. That's a given. So I think, one, we need to know how many hours do the guys screw, how many hours do we truly need these guys working?
Where did 17,000 then come from? If
That took the 36,000 and basically cut it in half. So it was like, instead of working a 40-hour week, we're gonna work 20 hours.
I see, and who did that?
That was a discussion between me and Brian. I got the 40 hours and the 55 hours from Brown. He's the one that set out that schedule.
Got it, okay. We'll talk about it further, yes. Okay, next.
And then the last one is for the general insurance, and that is for our D&O property insurance, umbrella insurance, and this is strictly driven by increased costs. It's not that we've added any extra coverage, except for the fact that now every member of the board of directors is covered under the D&O, where in prior years, it was only the officers. So this amount, it's set in stone. I mean, I am allocating that $12,000 every month.
I guess what I can say is, when I was asked to run as a director of the board of directors, that was my very first question. And it was answered in the affirmative.
Okay.
That all members were, yes, all members.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it's my understanding that that coverage just got added on January 1st. And I just found that out last week.
Like Brian Mickey.
Sorry. I'm just the messenger, and I got dropped into this program. So that basically covers all of my budget wishes. I can add that down at the very bottom, I have added $7,300 that's related to riprap that we should have spent out of the 2020 budget. So now our 2020 costs that are now incurring in 2021 is now up to $32,000 instead of the 25 that you saw on the last spreadsheet. And that is taken from the 168 at the very top. So now, in theory, we only have 130,000 of excess cash, plus the 110 that Clark and I had come up with that would be excess, unaudited.
So here's the way that worked. I went through the complication of these numbers last time. Question real quick, Crystal, is the cybersecurity insurance for 2520 in the 198?
It is.
It is.
I went ahead and left it in. We can't.
But let's talk about that. So here's the way that works. So when we're talking about these line items, you know where these numbers are coming from. Right now, the 198, 184, which is the subtotal, is all of those items in that column. The 198, 184, if you went up to the top and you use all of the 56,093, which is an audited number from June 30, 2020. And you use all of the 110, which is the unaudited. But what we felt like, as you noticed in our amendment to the minutes of this meeting, what we felt like were true excess funds, then that would be 166,093. So you take 166,093 away from 198, 184, and it gives you that delta of 32,091, which is the difference down there.
But that doesn't explain the 163, 378. I mean,
Well,
it seems like more that the 198 is first coming against the 163.
no, that's,
Minus the 32.
in reality, the 110 and the 163 should be added together to give you your access for 12/31/2020.
Right.
That's what you had.
Right.
You had 273, 378.
And we spent 32,000.
And you spent 32. So that leaves you up at the top, the very top, far right hand corner, 130, 856 plus 110. But I guess the way I'm getting to the delta is if you said the 110 plus 56 against the 198 gives you a 32 delta. Then you take that 32 delta and you go up to the right and you take it against that 130, 856, right? So you cover those costs. When you do that, it leaves you, and this number's not on here, so you might want to write it down. It leaves you excess funds for the 6-month period ending 12/30/20 of $98,765. So you got almost $100,000 that the next board has got to deal with over the next 12 months.
If we pay for all of
If you pay for all of it, that's right. Understand? It's actually, in my opinion, it's 24. There's still some confusion about that. Or if within that 24 months, if you have any excess funds, you can contribute them to a reserve fund and you don't have to pay taxes. You either use them or contribute them to a reserve fund and you don't have to pay.
I understand the spending 24 months spending of that money. I'm talking about, you're showing an excess for 6 months of you were projecting 110, now I'm not sure what you're saying. Are you saying it's 98 for 6 months, or are you saying it's 98 for the 18 months?
No, the excess was 273, 378, which is the 110. Look, you'll look at the minutes, we just handed out to you with the highlight. 273, 378. When we did a study of 273, 378, after 12/31 of 20, we said, you know, there's 163 of this that could be spent sometime in the next couple of months. It just didn't get spent. So that left us 110. We said, okay, so let's take the 110 and put it there and say, we know that's excess. Okay? There's a possibility that 163 could be spent. So we segregated those two numbers to give you that detail.
If you go back to your December P&L at the end of December of 2020, it will show $273,000.
But we made up a number called 110 a few weeks ago.
We didn't make it up.
A lot of work went into that number.
We went through the P&L line by line.
But is that number still the case, 110?
Yes, yes.
So where's that? We're still expecting to spend this 163 somewhere.
The 163
No.
is the 110.
Well,
$50,000.
Don't know yet.
That's if y'all go through my list and y'all decide to approve any of these items.
So if you approve that, you go to 32, you spend the 32, you take that away from the 130, you just tell me you've got 198,765 remaining. Okay? Further, let me clarify something you said. If you look at the treasurer's report at 12/30/2020, you will see a bottom line number, bottom line far right, of 295 and some change.
Right.
If you look up at your revenues, you'll see lot sales for 24,000 some odd change. Lot sales go to CDRF, not O&M. So you reduce the 295 by that 24,000 number, which gives you the 273. You got to be aware that that lot sales number's up there in that revenue. And take that away from that number.
So in summary, we have 110 still projected that we could spend along with the 56. And that's short of the requested amount.
No, we're asking you to spend.
32,000 short of the requested amount. So we have 110, and they're projecting that we'll have as unaudited excess for the 6-month budget, and we have audited 56,000 2019-2020 annual budget, and that's 32,000 short of the requested 198.
Correct.
But as Mark said, when you add all three of those numbers up at the top, subtract 32,500, you get a net of 296,949 that we can allocate. If you take the 198,184, that still leaves 98,000 of excess. If you spend 32, and even if you spend the whole 198,
You'll have 98.
you still have 98,000.
That's where I'm confused. I'm sorry, you guys are getting it all, and I'm just silly, but you said you were gonna spend approximately $163,000 left over out of that 6-month budget to bring the 273, 378 down to 110. Okay, maybe that's what it is.
When we looked at the end of the year surplus, 12/30/20, it was 173,378.
273.
273, yeah, 273, 368. Crystal, me, and I think Brian participated in that. How long were we there? We went
We
through,
were there for like 2 to 3 hours.
we were there for a long, long time. And we, in 2 sessions, we went through every department. And we figured out, hey, why do we have such a large surplus? We looked at all of the things that happened, all the force majeure stuff, all of the weather related, this, that. We talked to Chris, we talked to Brian, we talked to Brian Brown, we talked to Crystal, we talked to Scott. We went through each line item. The reason for that excess was there were certain things that, due to force majeure delays, did not get spent. Did not get accomplished. Those items. When we tallied those items after talking to each manager, they came up to about $164,000. Of the 273, we said, okay, do y'all think you will spend those funds in the very near future to accomplish those tasks? Someone said, well, I don't know, some said possible, maybe, maybe not, I don't know. We said, okay, we can't, and we're talking about in January, we can't just take it away from them right now, we can take it away from them later. Let's allocate it, say, okay, you keep 163,378. When you do that, I know out of the 273, I got 110 that we can spend elsewhere. So we took the 110 and we stuck it over there for you. That's how that got there.
Clark, can I ask one question there? Of those items that they weren't spent, is every one of them on this list now?
No,
No, we're still sitting there.
these are budget adjustments for 2021. That's what these are.
Okay, that worries me then. That worries me then. How much is that? Do we need to add another list of what they're really listing?
No, they're already saying their budget for 2021 is sufficient, right?
Well, no, and that's the reason that's part of the wish list.
No, when you add this, when you add these items,
Yes,
yes.
this is,
Once you make these budget adjustments in those departments, they're saying they're good for 2021.
They're all happy with that.
So they're all happy at 2021.
So the roads, I understand.
Yeah.
Roads, I get it.
Chemical,
Fertilizer,
When you make these adjustments.
okay.
yes, we're not.
Chris, I'd like you to get a microphone. Walk the board through, because most board members and residents, when I speak with them regarding the roads, very hot topic, typically a high item on surveys, etc. And most people say, well, we spent $500,000 on roads. Walk through a little bit of history, a little bit on your map, and what was the impact, and if the board chooses to modify, delay, or fully fund the additional 55, what are the pros and cons? Because you've been one of the people who said, okay, there's an option not to do this. And I want to make sure my board has options. I'm not trying to put anyone down the primrose path here, just because we have a little more excess cash than some of us thought we did. So let's be very prudent and conservative with our discussion. So thank you.
All right, you had a map in your packet. You had a map in your packet of Lake Kiowa, and I had some projected 2021 projects on there. Now, the roads go through a 5-series process. So every road on Lake Kiowa will get hit in one of those 5 processes throughout 5 years. Whether it be crack sealing. Go ahead, Jim.
They get each of those processes, they get one of those processes every year, but over 5 years, they get all the processes.
Yes.
Okay, that's not what you quite said.
Okay, sorry. So every road will get one process out of those 5 within 5 years. So after 5 years, every road should be hit on Lake Kiowa. If you continue to take the 55,000 away, that would make us whole for the last 2 years. That's 110,000 taken away from in 2 years. So that can do a lot of road paving, crack sealing, etc. Those projects. So you cut some of my project from 5 years and push it to 6 by doing that. So that's the long-term effect of continuing to take 55,000 away from the road budget. And it shows that you're not spending the true 500,000 on the road projects, whether it's buying the equipment, the crack sealing, or whatever. All that is accumulated to the roads. Now, like Ryan was saying, if you choose to not do something on this list and just make yourself whole at a 0 budget, you can take the 32,522 away from the roads at the 55,000 and make the bottom budget 0. And now you're not in a hole anyway. But that's completely up to you and what you're doing. So just understand there's options in there, but next year I'm going to come back to you again for the extra 55,000.
Mentioned 55 for 2 years. Were you shorted in 2019?
Yes.
55,000?
Yes. So we didn't have.
It went down in the last, it used to be above that and it went down a year previous budget and it stayed down this time.
Yes,
Because I thought it got lowered because of COVID or something. Or we were just adjusting the whole budget.
no.
When we were doing the budget back in February, March, April, May, we specifically talked about roads. And we specifically, I don't remember, because it was a big number. We specifically said O&M budget should have $250,000. Somehow it just didn't get there. We did talk about that. Okay, just so you know.
So from there, are there any other questions on roads and how it operates moving forward?
Thank you, appreciate that.
Do y'all have any questions on other individual items?
I have a comment. We're talking about a $200,000 number, and when you're looking at a $4.5 million budget, that is less than 5%. So think of it that way as well. You will have some deviation in other areas throughout your operation compared to budget. That will be there. We have a concern already about the lodge. We're probably, for our February numbers, going to have a negative net number on the lodge of about $9 grand. I'll let y'all know that right now, even though I'm not going to present it to you. But, and so you're going to have some deviation all through, but less than 5% deviation from a budget ain't bad. Okay.
I make a motion that Clark has to stay on for another year.
I second that.
Okay, so you want me to just go through them one by one now? We check them off, and then if we have major questions, we take them one at a time.
Can I still get clarification that we are asking for a total of $198,000 budget changes, but we are only confidently sure, we're only confident that we have $166,000 to spend? I've heard, as I hear that conversation, I do the math, that's what it says, but then I hear numbers float around all over the place, and they don't add up, except to add up to 166 that we have available to spend. And technically, we don't really have that available because it's not audited, but I can see us projecting that 110. But are we projecting more than 110 for availability?
Yeah,
If we are, then why isn't that number in here?
yeah, I still see it as 269,949. And we're asking for 198,184 out of that. With the delta being still a positive number of 98,765. That's my understanding.
Where are you getting
I understand you've already spent the 32,522.
That's right. Took
Out of
that
that
out.
number.
Took that
out
out.
of the 269? 269?
Can I just come over?
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking, I'm trying to get it there.
I added that for the record. Right.
The 163 not, they said we're gonna spend out of that excess 273.
My understanding is all.
No. That's what I'm saying, that's not true.
We're hoping.
Yes.
Well, yeah, maybe. We don't know yet.
That's why I'm scared to say, yeah, vote for all that.
That's the reason I told you. If you took the difference out of the 130 remaining of 163, you've got 98,765.
So I'm wondering why we don't have it line by line, including what all goes into that 163 that we're looking at.
We could go back and revisit the 1230 budget and break it out line by line. We just didn't. I mean, the 110, I mean, whenever you look at your P&L back in December, we had a lot of, excess money for salaries. We didn't spend as much in, but we asked Chris, it was like, okay, here's how much excess you have for public works. Here's how much excess you had for parks and recs. You know, here's how much excess you had for central garage. Go through line by line and tell me, are you thinking you're gonna end up, that this should have been spent, but for whatever reason didn't get spent, but we're gonna end up spending it maybe during the first quarter of 2021. And he went through it and was like, yep, this is okay for it, this is salaries. We're not gonna spend that. So that's excess. So that way, that's how part of that 110 came to be. It's the same way with my department. I mean, we basically cut a whole person in my department. So I mean, I had like $30,000 in excess funds for salaries. We're not gonna spend it.
Okay, but what I want to know, how much do we need to spend in 2021 compared to the total of revenue minus?
Compared to the 163, which is now 130. That's what you're looking at. I understand what you're asking, and I can't answer that question.
That's what I say, we can't break it down.
Now, I would say that if that is not spent in sometime in the next 30 days, whatever that 98, whatever that 130, 856 becomes excess cash. Now, Crystal has put emails out to all the managers saying, what's that number look like? What are you spending?
And I'm not getting anything back. I mean, Chris is the only one that basically come back and said, hey, I still have some cracks that we need to do. And some road repairs, you know. We did notice, you know, that we did get excess, you know, some excess expense related to the water because we didn't pump as much back into the lake in 2020. So the SUD pumped like crazy during January. So we had like a huge bill to come in in the first part of February. So that should have been spent.
Yeah, that's okay, but I guess right now, until we have those numbers, I don't think we should
pick more than 110,000 off this list.
And that's fine,
And that's-
and that's fine. But I think you also need to understand that there was a lot of work went into this sheet of paper. And to think and not have any trust in the people that put that together is not a good thing. And I'll tell you that right off the bat. It's exactly what you said.
We're saying that Rich, we spend more than 110 plus the 56. That's all I was trying to point out, and I kept hearing 263. And we only have 110 plus 56. I understand that effort going in this month.
That's fine.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so I think, yeah, we're on the same page.
No, I'm just telling you.
Mhm.
All I'm telling you is if you agree to 198, then that means you're gonna spend 32,000 more. And the only place to get it is out of that 130. And if you do, it leaves you 98,765. That's what.
All right, let's start at the top, I guess, see which ones are must.
Okay, I feel like the North Star admin is a must, because I mean, we are gonna have to run dual systems. Whenever we flip the switch and go into North Star, there are systems that we're gonna need to run at least 1 month.
Okay, questions, comments, and then we take it one by one. It's a vote.
It might be easier, again, if everybody would agree, we have 166,000 of money available to us in excess funds, that it might be easier to back into and say, what are we carving out of 198 to fit to 166? And then the rest of these changes that are coming out of the 163, or we're gonna have additional changes come up next month because something in our schedule is not right. We're gonna have something come up 3 months from now because something's not right. And
But I think there are several things. The insurance, the income taxes, the North Star, and the HR. I mean, I think you're obligated to right there. Yeah, that's 4 right there. Whatever that adds up to.
Okay, would it be helpful if I went through and right beside the subtotal, it says a must and an optional? The must items are equal 128,774. That number is made up of the North Star, the payroll system, the chemicals and fertilizer, the federal income taxes, the emails, or not, yeah, the email system, the Christmas bonus, and the general insurance. Now, what I did say was that right now we could move the 5,000 from the federal income taxes to a later time and see how things are going. But still, Alex still gives me enough money to cover my quarterly taxes. Yes. Jim?
well, I would respectfully disagree on the must for chemicals and fertilizer.
Okay.
I would also say the roads and bridges is not a must, we would say that one. And then I would say the new email system is not a must.
Okay.
I would also say the Christmas bonus is not a must, but it's something that can be contemplated if we have the funds available later this year.
And that's what I was fixing to get to, is that there were items that I had labeled as must, but during our discussion had moved it to optional, or to discuss it later. Guess what?
On the 5,000 in federal income tax,
Mhm.
that audit is underway.
Not yet. I am in the process of finishing up one report, and I will have all of my files to the CPA more than likely next week. It typically takes about 2 months to complete our audit and get us a first draft.
That's the first draft of the audit, but the federal income tax will be done off of that audit.
Yes,
And that's where that money comes into play.
that is correct.
So that money is no more than 3 months away. If you need it. Just so you know. Okay.
So whenever we were talking earlier, yes, roads and bridges could be a must.
Okay, let's start with this. North Star, HR, income tax, general insurance. Does anybody agree that any of them should not be on the must list?
You said North Star.
HR, 12,168 out of the income tax. And the general insurance, 30,170. Consensus of the board, those four. Anybody right now on the board want to add another thing to the must list? North Star 5464, HR 9595, income tax, not including the 5,000, is 12,168. Insurance 30,179. So 30, 42, 52. We did that. Okay, let's start with the motion there. Let's start by just approving those four things. So I make the motion that we do approve the changes to cover the North Star administration, HR support, $12,168 for the quarterly income tax payments, and the increased general insurance cost of $30,179 for a total 57,406. Wait a second. Okay. Further discussion on that? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Kathy, okay. I think that's everybody in the group. Okay, that's a start.
I thank y'all.
That's approved.
Chris says 52,594 is what's left for us to spend.
Well, is that out of the 110 or does that not include the 56,063? Okay, so if you add the 56 to it, how much is that? It 56,093. Okay. Who's got a proposal on the next best thing? You're not on the board.
Also, for the amount of money and the communication on that, just I don't know, it just seems like we need to get 20%.
A email system with an additional 1,177. Okay, is that a motion, Jim? Same second there? Oh, Steve, okay. All in favor of approving? Okay. All right, any opposed? That one's good. Next, we get a motion on what they feel is next most important. Roughly 107,000. A motion from Sam. All 55,000.
Yeah, I think we could do all 55,000 for the roads and bridges. That's one of the things everybody wants.
Steve, did you second it? Okay, Steve seconded that. Any further discussion on the roads, all 55,000 for the roads? All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, it's good, okay. Good. All right, so that leaves chemicals. Sorry, Commissioner, for the bonuses, the golf marshals, you got three things there. Those add up to 11, 19, well, that's 20. 77, that's 77,000 out of those remaining. So we're gonna back off on something.
Mr. President, point of order. I would recommend strongly that you allocate your balance to come back to the balances you're looking for the fertilizer, and have these other subjects will be on agendas as we progress. I will need to give Brian the okay in the next 30 days to the first course of the 150, will probably be about 65. We still can cut it back, but it would be my recommendation that we give the balance. Where do you stand right now, 52 and change?
52,810.
Okay, 52,810, or call it 52 and a poker's hand, and we'll allocate that for the golf course maintenance at this time.
Okay, so that's Brian's recommendation. You can comment?
Well, but kind of a comment and a question. I mean, I generally agree with what you're saying. I did have a question on the golf marshal. Is that projected spending above this point in time, or it seems like this is a budget adjustment based on work since January? So we've already expended some of that.
And they've already worked more than what we have been budgeted for during the month.
So my point is, we're already over budget in the golf course item, but this is what we're already over budget and some projection into the future. So I don't know that we really have.
I think there's several other moving parts to this, and I don't have the full story to ask my board for additional funding on what the real cost is. I saw you shaking your head, and I saw Jim shaking his head. No, wait a minute, this doesn't quite add up with that because of what their duties are. You heard suddenly Crystal starting to say we're getting a third one. I saw a couple eyeballs just come out of people's heads. I can't in good measure ask for $1 until I have this rock solid. And for that, I'll apologize to my board for not having more clarity on this one, but it's a moving feast right now, candidly.
I guess, sorry, my point though is some of that, and I know you don't have it to tell us, so if we spend the full amount that's left, we can do that and go over, we can just spend over a little bit, but then we're gonna come back next month and we're gonna, oh yeah, we've already spent 3 months worth of starter and Marshall that had to have a budget adjustment, and we have nothing to spend except for, maybe translate.
You said they spent the monthly budget. They haven't spent the whole 6,000.
No, they have not spent the whole $6,000.
Okay.
But the amount that I've allocated over the 12 months, yes, they are spending more than what the budget is each month.
Okay, so we had a recommendation from Brian, but we need a motion from a board member on the fertilizer if we're going to do that.
I move that it was spending remaining 53,000.
Okay,
I think that's
all right. Sam Samuel seconds. Further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Okay, nobody opposed, so that motion. So that's where I propose that we stop for now and see how things shake out as we go on. But I really am interested in finding out how much of the 163 still at this point in time. We believe just to be sure, the 55,000 for the roads was not part of the 163.
No. No.
Okay.
clarify that for you. What you just spent is the 56,093 and the 110. That's what you just spent. Okay.
Okay, I think we get 6A. 6B, discuss and take possible action on ARF asset replacement overage. What is that?
Okay. Let me address that. Typically, when we have an expenditure for, that has the schedule for a piece of equipment, be it for the lodge or the golf course, the numbers are relatively close, give or take a few $1,000s. It was very clear to Clark and myself that we couldn't just sign off on a huge variance on the schedule of ARF and the actual need to replace said pumps. So we've got a couple of pumps that are in the process of being replaced. They haven't been, but they have to. And the amount difference is around $11,000. So there are options for the board to go. We're going to get pumps. This is not a matter of, well, let's go get a better price, okay? So this is a matter of a vendor that knows how to install them, that has a history with our property, and will be scheduled to do it accordingly. So this is not a bid situation at all. But this is a situation where a combination of the technology on the pumps has gotten better, but also a little bit more expensive. We have a factor in there that some of the inflation factor for these particular line items over years were not culminated in which they were compounding, which would have helped, but still not, we still would have had a delta here. So that's not the excuse here. This is a little bit of an abnormality to have $11,000 situation on this. So the board can instruct me to dig into ARF and kind of kick the can down the road as an option. Keep in mind that that particular, account has what, $1.86 million in it. It's significant. $11,000 is not small. I'm not trying to weigh you one way or the other. I'm giving you options here. The other one is that it comes out of the operation, the O&M budget, which just makes the previous 49 minutes even more interesting. So I needed to bring it to your attention. We're going to get the pumps. We're going to have water on the golf course. There's just no gun to your head. Things will be fine. But this was enough that Clark and I thought, no, this got to be in front of the board. You guys got to know that in this case, from time to time, we'll have a discrepancy or incongruency, because it's math, having to do with art. Any other comments, Clark?
No, I just say, we've had this before with a tractor, I believe. But for the most part, y'all never see this. And we're moving from ARP, we're moving about $700,000 to $800,000 in assets in and out of there every year. And so this is an oddity. This is not common. But what we've got here is an $11,000 difference on what ARP had on the cost of these assets 10 years ago. Okay, and what those assets cost today. And understanding that the technology of these assets today is greater than it was 10 years ago. And that's part of the reason for this problem.
But we also have anomalies or whatever that may work in our favor too. If the ice machine lasts 2 or 3 years longer than we just, correct?
Sure, we have that all the time.
So have that all the time. So yeah, so I guess the
It's just important that you hear about these as they come.
Yeah.
This kind of delta on.
Right, we appreciate that. So I guess the choice is O&M or RC added to the R.
I would think that we could do it O&M, but I would recommend that we just let it ride till the end of the year or until our next budget process, at least, and see where we are plus and minus on the art schedule in general as we do the next budget. And because the pluses may, or the minuses may outweigh the pluses, so to speak. And then we'll adjust the art rate of our fees accordingly.
I don't know if that's possible. Clark, can you find, is that possible to let it ride and spend the money and then at the end of the year?
That was going to be my motion.
Is
That
it?
was going to be exactly my motion. In
Okay.
that And just so y'all know, and I'm spreading as much information that's in my noodle as I can, as I see things. So y'all know, okay? And that is the ARC schedule we've been looking at ARC for a while now, and we keep looking at ARC. ARC is huge. It's a huge schedule. And Crystal and I have been going through ARC. We've been doing some with Brian. The managers are looking at ARC really, really close to make sure that their stuff that they have in the ARC schedule is close. We're looking at the inflation factor. We're looking at the formula to see how we can take that inflation factor and push it up. We also are looking at the accrued interest that we're earning on CDs or investments. That gets added to those assets as well, but on those cash balances. So we're looking at amending all of that. Y'all need to know that. Your new treasurer is going to get a big bite of this stuff. And further, there are some items that they're on the ARC schedule, but I don't think that they're priced properly. And so I've asked some of the managers to go back out to contractors and say, hey, let's look at this every so often and make sure we're on schedule for this asset. And so that's one of the things that's going on right now as well.
You're gonna make a motion.
I'm going to make a motion that we let this, it's not really 11,000 because we haven't put the inflation factor or the accrued interest factor into that number. It's probably closer to 9 or 10 in reality. And I would make the motion that we just go ahead and fund it out of ARC. These new asset values are going into ARC. Okay, the old asset values are going to go away. And these new asset values are going in. So when we put these new asset values in, then it's going to change the whole cash schedule. Okay, and I make the motion that we go ahead and fund it from ARC.
Right now, we're not deferred to the end of the year.
No, right now. It doesn't
I'm
matter.
saying it doesn't, I mean, we could take.
It'll wash out.
We're gonna have to make an adjustment the next budget cycle, so.
On the next budget cycle, you're probably all the stuff we're looking at in ARC, and we're gonna show all that to you. But looking at ARC, and we're fixing to have a meeting with Gregory and the Ways and Means folks are fixing to start looking at ARC as well. Based upon what we did last year, they audit that every year, make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and you'll be coming in and report it to y'all. Most of this stuff washes out by the end of the year, and then you get to look at it in the budget cycle. And then when you look at it in the budget cycle, you can look at the cash needs versus the cash coming in and the cash balance, and you can compare those two all the way down through there. And hopefully we'll have some other answers on some of these other assets by that time. Well, I suspect we will.
Okay, we have a motion from Clark going in charges against the ARC schedule at this point. Is that a second? Okay, further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes as well.
Just a note of order, Jamie, please note that I made this particular item in the meeting minutes because it'll have to be readdressed probably in the third quarter. Thank you.
Okay, item 7, COVID-19 committee updates. Kathy and Brian, we do have the potential to take actions after this. So who wants to lead it off, Brian or Kathy?
I can.
Go ahead.
I may need it, someone else's microphone. Go ahead.
All right, Cook County EMS has stopped posting the COVID number of cases on their Facebook account. The last one was updated on March 3rd. At that time, Kiowa was at 3 cases, which is wonderful. Gainesville was at 30. Numbers are coming down all over the state, which is a great place to be. And so I'll find out from Ray Fletcher this week, are they going to stop publishing it? Or maybe they're going to do it midweek. I don't know. We're still doing the vaccine clinics. We will continue to do Tuesday clinics around 500 doses on a regular basis, and those will be second shots. And then Thursdays will be our big clinics, and they'll run 8 o'clock to 5. And those would be in excess of 1,000 every time. Pardon?
Nothing.
They've also added teachers and staff to 1B. And so we have also started inoculating all of Cook County's teachers and administration people. That's pretty much from my side. Brian, you want to pick up on where you're at with the employees and the amenities?
Thank you. In my very brief community manager's report, I would just like the board's support on the philosophical point of reopening Wednesday to a 75% capacity. And that would be the seating within each of the rooms, standing, et cetera, with that. Encouraging, the clubs to re-enter the activity of committees and subcommittees to be meeting at the lodge again. The staff will have masks to be their option. At this time, I'm very uncomfortable dictating and overriding the governor on the mask thing. I do have some staff members that will continue to wear masks with that as well. Hand sanitizers will remain all over the place. I'm going to leave the 6-foot separation, social distancing, just as a reminder. We're not going to, get the big eraser out completely. I'd like to phase this in and get back to 100%, hopefully on or about sometime mid-April. There's some operational issues that come into play in terms of the staff when we're going on. I don't look to expand operations in terms of hours until probably sometimes in April. I've had a number of people in the bridge community, the poker community, ask about card playing. We have followed the lead of, I believe, WinStar and that sort of protocol, but that's in a different state, and I don't want to be in a position to debate with members saying, well, wait a minute, all we're going to do is play poker on Wednesday night or whatever. So we would like to go ahead and encourage that. It's one that the staff's comfortable with. We've met 2 times on this. It was not a difficult kind of conversation. It wasn't like, well, you guys have to do this. They were absolutely very open to do it, and they were appreciative of taking a phased approach rather than, bring it on right away. And I think we'll find a good reception on that. Just a note to this, through just a handful of days, literally 7 or 8, the lodge revenue is back to about 110 to 120% of the budget. So we've had a nice little rebound as expected. And we'll take a look at forecasts and things like that. There is one item in there that I put in my notes: no popcorn. I'm not going to do that. No. It's a mess. It's virtually impossible to kind of gauge for that. So you may get a corner conversation with the fellow members saying, oh, why can't we have free popcorn? So not right now. We'll take a look at it. Let's get open. Let's do it right. And that's it as it relates to COVID. I've got 2 other things when it comes under the community manager.
Are you recommending, you said you recommended 75%?
Yes, sir.
So are you recommending that based on state, or is that based on our ability to serve, or just on safety protocol?
Safety protocol, 1. 2, my confidence in being able to execute. We don't have the same level of staff we had a year plus a few months ago with it. So getting to 100 is the goal. I can't sit here and tell my board I can be 100% at 7 a.m. Wednesday.
Okay. Further comments, questions for Brian on that? Kathy, what's your opinion on these recommendations?
Hang on just a second. All right, go ahead.
I'm in supportive of it. We're still telling everybody CDC guidelines are still in place, which tell you not to do that. Federal guidelines tell you not to do that. If we want to make a stand and start at 75, I think in agreement with Brian, he doesn't have the staff to go to 100 right now. And we're going into springtime. Hopefully we do a lot more outdoors than we've done because of weather issues. So we have to start somewhere, and I'd rather do it at 75 and then gradually ease up as he builds his staff. With the new chef coming on board, it makes a whole lot of sense to have him really drive that for us.
Okay. So I make a motion to approve Brian's recommendation here for the 75% seating grapple lodge starting on the 10th of March. Do we have a second? Steve? Okay. Further comments, questions? All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, thanks, Brian. Then you got a couple more things on the report there, I guess. Let's see. I guess go on and finish your report.
We can do that. I did make mention that Chef Vincent Williams has secured a rental lease agreement as of this morning in Denison, and the property manager contacted me to verify employment and things like that. So I think that's just one more check in the box. And a special thank you to the Garden Club. I want that noted, JD, that they get a little kudos for this board meeting. They've been extremely receptive to the concept of putting together herb garden and tomato plants for use here at the lodge. They've identified a place right outside the lodge where they will rest and reside. Initially, they were apprehensive to the idea of, well, they just wanted to get a bunch of wood and plot out where they would dig in the dirt and add some dirt and we make this garden in kind of a very traditional manner. And Chris and the team came up with some very interesting concepts of where you have the garden at your hip. You're not bending over, so you're not hurting yourself, and you're having fun with it. You can show it off, and you keep vermin and birds out of it because they have the covers for it. And with the cost of wood versus the cost of plastic and irrigation systems is proved out to be relatively, actually very cost effective with it. So you'll see this coming to life in the coming weeks here off the wall. And we're gonna have some fun with it. And again, thank you to the Garden Club for taking my very, audacious idea and running with it and making it happen and testing the soil and talking about organics and all the things that they're good at that I don't know anything about. So, sure.
Jim, when you say located off the patio, can you be more specific?
You can tour later off and to the left up here. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Brian.
So hold on, Steve, had another question?
We're going to tell them a little bit about Vincent, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, certainly. Vincent Williams, the selection for working chef background is country club as well as large scale community. He'll be coming from the outside of the Denver market in Parker, Colorado. Interestingly enough, when we were negotiating his compensation package, there wasn't any discussion regarding compensation. It was immediately, I want to change the food vendor that you're using. He was not happy with US Foods. And that came up in the interviews, which, by the way, Steve participated in and 6 other key staff members participated in. And he's desirous of bringing one or possibly two of his lieutenants with him. And wanted to know about that. So that's a little bit unusual for a department head, but very common in the chef world. And so I green lighted that, and we talked about that and what's will be necessary to help facilitate that. So he'll be on property on or about the 20th of March. So we'll be sending him menus for Easter, and Leon's going to give you a little down and dirty 30 seconds on what we're planning to do for Easter week, not just Easter Sunday, Easter week.
Leanne, is that what you were raising your hands for?
Yeah. Is that now? I thought you forgot.
It's not 30 seconds, I'm sorry, it will be a second longer than that. Okay, so, let me get this started. All right, so we're gonna do, an Easter event at the lodge. We're gonna have groups that we're gonna team up with in the community, so we're hoping to, talk to Kiwanis, KWC, and other groups, and have them volunteer as part of this. Those volunteers will be for the egg hunt. We're gonna have 3 different egg hunts, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We have kite flying, we have brought in a face painter, balloon maker, so they will be there. We have a need for people who are good with oral arranging, and we also will need a bunny. So we have a schedule of events over here, and on the right, you'll see that on Thursday, we're gonna have the Cruise Tones and the Renegades, so we've already scheduled them for Friday. For Saturday, we're gonna have the Blandells, and the Friends of Lake Kiowa have offered to pay for the Blandells. So both nights will have a cash bar. The car show will be in the south parking lot of the pavilion over on this side. And we're gonna block that whole parking lot off for the car show. I don't have the times yet, but we're thinking 5 to 8 right now. But the bands on Thursday and Friday will be 5 to 9. On Saturday in the morning, we're gonna have a station on the patio for mimosas and Bloody Marys. And then we'll have a brunch from 10:30 to 12. It's reservation only. And Easter festivities will start at 10. We'll have 3 Easter egg hunts. We'll have a birth for 3-year-old, 4 to 6-year-old, and 7+-year-old. And we've gone out and figured out the areas that we're gonna have those placed at. And then the kid fish will actually be at 2 p.m. that afternoon. So that will be all the festivities on that Saturday. And then Sunday, we're gonna have an Easter Sunday meal at the lodge. I tried to get the menus for you guys so you could see them, but that was as much as I could get. We had a budget that we were staying in, and we are very much within that budget, under it right now. So are there any questions about this? There's been a team of us that have been working on this. This is not just me. This is a whole group of us. So we're very excited to get things going at the lodge.
Yeah, that looks good. Thank you, Leanne. Any questions for Leanne? Great. Okay. So now we go back to item number 8, committee updates. New members, changes to committee. I don't know if any changes to existing committees. I know Clark's got an investment committee he wants to discuss. Anybody else know of any changes to existing committees? I'm sure a lot of that will happen right after the board elections are announced and everything, but Clark, tell us about the investment committee.
I was asked to kind of head up this investment committee on a go-forward basis and get it organized. And in doing so, one of the things is to get its members. I've also done several looks at the draft of the charter for this committee, but I'd like to have this committee together for them to consider the charter. The members, I have 5, other than myself, I have 5 other people that have agreed to be on this committee. I'll kind of give you their names and a little bit of their background. First one is Robert Mitchell. Robert is a money manager, been in the business a long time. He is getting close to retirement. He is a weekender here. He has a home in Plano because he still works. He mostly works out of the house and could come up here. Robert was with a very large house, and he last couple of years went to a small boutique. And so kind of glad he did that. Or if you'll think about the members of this committee, one of the things that we're probably going to look at is taking our money to a big house. And we want to make sure that no member of this committee has a conflict of interest with regard to that. And so we're probably going to end up putting out an RFP and soliciting that from several big houses and see what that comes up with. The next guy on the list is Jay Thompson. All of y'all know Jay. Jay's been around. He's currently president of the Chapel Club, or the Chapel, what do they call it, committee? Is that a committee? However they do that. Jay is a longtime investment banker. He was with banks. I think he was with Wells Fargo for a while, I think, and he solicited funds from other banks and ran trust departments and did a lot of investing. He was on the buy side, which is always the best side of an investment rather than the sell side. And so Jay Thompson, I've asked to be. Jay Thompson is now retired, but he works daily on his personal portfolio. I swore I'd never do that again. After I did that for a year, that's not going to happen. The next person on the list is Jeremy David. Jeremy leases a lot out here and is a member of he's on the NGA board, and he has an office in Denton. He is an insurance. His name of his company is Complete. He is an insurance company and a wealth management company in Denton. And he currently manages about 70 million. But he's a small house and has been with big houses before in his career. Okay. Next guy on the list, you're probably all going to know is Matt Sauer. Matt Sauer currently runs DNLC PDC. Took over for them. He was with Fidelity for years and was a VP at Fidelity in both retail and wealth management. And so he's been around the horn. Next guy on the list is Bill Little. Bill Little was in the nominating committee for this upcoming board election. He he's a retired 35-year banker. Spent the last few years with Wells Fargo, first 2 years with Mercantile and M-Bank. Came up through that debacle. He and I talked for probably 2 hours about where we were in the past. And it's strange that we didn't know each other. And we probably crossed paths several times. But he's a retired individual, and he just recently moved out here. And I say recently, a year, 18 months, something like that. Wanted to run for the board. The nominating committee kind of talked him out of it, told him he needed to get involved in some of the committees, this, that, and the other, and learn a little more about the community before he did. But the nominating committee was impressed enough to recommend him to me. And so that's where that came from. I did not previously know Bill, but I know him now. And so I like Bill Little. And those 5 are the names I've chosen for the committee.
So, and just to be kind of understand where you're going, you're looking for a house, investment house, to actually make decisions on where to invest. The committee would not make individual recommendations. They would be influential in picking who does it and how much we might turn over to.
Yeah, and y'all can correct me if you want to, my vision right now is that we're gonna get this committee going, we're gonna get the charter in, probably in the April, in the next meeting, the March meeting, you're gonna get to see this charter, or a draft of it. You're gonna approve it, hopefully you'll approve these members. And then in the next couple of months, this committee will make a recommendation to you that yes, from a fee standpoint, it's best to go with the big houses. Each one of the big houses has a municipal section, which focuses on municipal money. And our money is very similar to municipal money, and it's very risk averse money. And I think we're in that game. And so we will see, through that time, we will make a recommendation as to, along with our community manager, as to how much of our cash balances we think we should do. I think there's some opportunity here because of ARP and some long-term assets in ARP, and we know what those numbers are. We know what those cash needs are to make some ladders, if you will, out of some of those investments. Hope everybody understands what a ladder is. Good. In other words, you get some longer term stuff. It's not all short because you don't need the money. So we'll make some, we'll structure some ladders with the investment firm that we recommend to you. We'll show you exactly who we put the RFP out to. We'll show you exactly what came in and let y'all make that choice. But we'll make a recommendation.
Okay, so I move forward with it. We said that's your motion to add these two people. Do we have a second? Let's have a second.
Yeah,
Discuss it.
Well, it'd be better if he doesn't make the motion.
Well, that's a good point. Okay, so I'll make a motion. Clark Enright, Robert Mitchell, Jay Thompson, Jody David, Matt Sauer, Bill Little, compose our initial investment committee charter forthcoming as well. So do we have a second? Jerry seconds that. Further discussion?
I just want to ask a question. After you get this up and going, the committee set and get a charter and they get an investment firm, do you see the committee having to meet very often, or how do you see that going?
I see that committee meeting every month and looking at the financial, that's a statement that the House sends us, and make sure balancing back all the numbers and everything, and probably getting on your monthly agenda and saying everything looks good.
The money that will be used for this is just like we're doing investing now, but in CDs, will this be taking the money that we have been investing in CDs and putting into this to make better money on?
Probably not all of it, but a good portion of it, yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor of approving these gentlemen for the investment committee, say aye. Oh, okay, anybody opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Clark, appreciate you doing that. All right, we had something that says golf committee, discuss and take possible action on golf cart policy. Kenny's not here. Anybody know what that was about?
Yes, this is the position of being on cart path with the current policy for a longer period of time, meaning into April, or at some point in April, once Brian allows that it's not cart path only, that we resort back to pre-COVID of 2 people in a cart and 2 carts to a foursome. So if you want to keep your individual cart and you're going to have 4 or 5 carts to your group, you'll be in the cart path. If you choose to be doubling up, as you were doing for years and years, then you would have the flexibility or the option of then using the fairways as you would play. It's not one or the other. It's if you're going to be those individuals using their carts, and I suspect there will be a lot of people that were accustomed to it and like it and have their own, you know, cart and they want to stay with that, they gotta stay on the cart path.
What about the one crossover rule where we have parallel cart paths on each side? Right now, the marshal will tell us, okay, as long as there's a cart path on this side, you got one chance to go over there.
My understanding that that would remain in place.
That would remain in place. Okay. Okay. Good.
I'm perfectly fine with that rule. If you have more than, I mean, when we open up, if you have more than 2 carts, you have to stay on the cart path. But when we did this 6 months ago, everybody was against that. And again, that was my idea to do that. So everybody's against what I wanted to do because they couldn't manage it. Now we're saying we can manage that process and that the marshals and that we didn't improve. And well, it just concerns me now we're saying that we can do it that way. But I'm all for it. I share your concern.
Yeah, I'm sure that same thought, and I thought it was Brown who said the management of that on the course was very difficult, and that's why the golf committee and everybody didn't really want to go that route with having them trying to figure out who was allowed on the course and who wasn't. So I thought that was sort of a Brown type of thing.
And then my one question, we allow 5 sims, right? That 3 carts would be allowed, and then if you got 3 carts with a 5 sim, you can still, they go out onto the fairway, is that correct?
Yes.
Good.
I would put, if you don't mind, Brian, I would put forth the motion that would say that we remain as is and in our current state until Brian says the course is open for carts. And once the course is open for carts, we return to the 2 persons per cart or no more than 3 carts if you have a 5. So basically how we were before COVID. But that's on Brian's decision to open up. Brian Brown, correct. Yes, that would be where I'd be supporting on that. Absolutely.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Are you saying that you would not allow 4 carts as long as they stay in the cart path, or you would allow?
Right now, we're allowing 5 carts if we have a 5 sim. So remain as we are doing now until Brian changes the rule that says it's okay to drive on the course. Once we start driving on the course, we go back to the pre-COVID rules.
And what if people are not comfortable with that and they'd rather stick to take their own cart and stay in the golf on the cart path?
Again, I would be for Brian's rule, or not, or for what this Brian says, but that's not what the golf management group has recommended in the past, or said they can manage. So I'm for either way, and I was just putting forth a motion to put us on a path to do something. So if somebody wants to modify it, I'm happy to vote.
Okay, so I think I heard you say leave it like it is for now and then address it next month or next board meeting. Is that what you're saying?
My motion was leave it as is now, but the motion allows Brian Brown to open up the course, and when he does, we just go back to pre-COVID golf cart rules. We want to change that one. I'm open to another change, or I'm open to voting on it next month too.
And just to clarify that, you're that much sure saying people are going to be forced to buy together, because that's what pre-COVID was.
Right. I guess my issue is we're not totally out of the clear yet, and there may be people that are drastically opposed to riding with somebody. And I think if they're fine for sticking to the cart path, I'd let it. I know it's hard to manage, but until we're totally out of the.
I'll change my motion. That goes against everything you guys all voted for once before, except for me. And it also goes against what the golf committee and Brian and Brian Brown and Brian Corey recommended.
Now, Brian, Matt, your information information came from Randy Grillmine and Senator Golf.
Yes.
So I would rather, my preference would be go with what Brian's suggestion was right here. Because I just don't think we're totally out of the COVID thing and forcing people into the golf carts right now. If they'd rather, stick to that cart path and walk across there, it's probably healthier for them.
I'll always do my motion. I'm fine with that. That's fine with it once before.
Okay, so I've made a motion to go with Brian's suggestion. It should came from Randy Romans of the golf committee. Do we have a second on that? Second, from Clark, further discussion, good fun.
I just want to add to, I would like, go ahead and prove that, that's what the board feels like doing, but to monitor that and to hear feedback on the use that might come from that, and if there is considerable feedback from the from the marshals and Brown on that, that they can't control those 5 people that are, they're constantly on the course all the time, that maybe that has to be reconsidered at another board meeting. And so if we're getting course managed from that, I just think we reconsider it.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so we have a motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor of my motion, say aye. Anybody opposed to that? Kathy, support. Okay, motion passes. All right, item 8C, Lake Management Committee, Cecil, filling in for Jim Marcus. Discuss and take possible action on the water crossing of $24,200 to Anderson Demo.
Yeah, I'm gonna come up here. I believe you've seen a good part of this presentation before. What I'm gonna do is update all of you on where we've been with some projects we've done with the Lake Committee, but also the things that we're doing presently now. And there's a reason for that. So,
Yeah, for the minutes, can you tell us your lot number?
oh, my lot number is 297.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, that's just a slide that shows committee members. Programs that we are doing is lake and salt removal or silt removal, retention pond cleanouts, seawall repairs, and drainage. The one you're going to see highlighted in red is what I'm going to talk mostly about is seawall repairs. We've done some small projects over on Quantico and this little Beaver Cove off of Newita, but we're also doing now, I'd call it an upgraded project that we've started already in Low Water 1. And I know that Jim had mentioned that and covered it in some detail before, but I'm going to show you some things right now. For silt removal, you've seen that there is a lake management reserve fund, and we're pulling what is it, $12.50 a month for every lot owner. Initial projects, we're talking about dredging coming up down the road. The planning and the permits are being worked on in 2022, and work will start in 2023. Part of what we've done right now is smaller projects will start to give people some confidence in the Lake Committee, and that we're doing some things where there is work that needs to be done. I won't cover this, but it talks about the ponds, the retention ponds, and there will be cleanouts on those. There's a process going right now, getting approval from the Corps of Engineers and doing them on a periodic basis. You can see that we've got a bid that was $80,000. We've reduced the scope to $50,000. So clean out of those retention ponds. There are 2 on site. One is at Low Water 2, and the other one is at Low Water 3. Down the road farther, we're going to be spending some money, hopefully, to dredge in specific designated areas again, to be determined. Seawall repair. We've completed Quantico, the boat ramp area, and Newita Cove is basically complete except for the top dressing. I'll show you some pictures of that. what Jim had talked about earlier was low water one, and a project there on the park, in that park area on the west side, and you'll see some pictures, and there's progress being made presently. Again, we complete, go ahead. There you can see, and it's tough to see the washout from Quantico. There's a better picture of it right there. Over the years, and that's a low traffic, low speed area, just washout. We're sandy here at Kiowa in a lot of areas, and it doesn't take much for rain, water running downhill to wash things out. There was what it looked, that's Quantico, and there's what it looked like after, I'd call it the first initial work that was done. And you can see that it's been filled in. There's what it looks like today. A whole lot different, isn't it? What happens is we've got a company called Anderson Excavation and Demolition. He's based out of Sadler. He's in here doing the work. He does a lot of work in here for private residential folks. We go in and take that eroded area and put concrete, broken up concrete as a base. If you do not, and I'll show you some things here when we see low water one, down the road shortly, you end up with erosion again. That concrete provides a solid base. It's all smashed down. He's got a large case track hoe that he uses. And what he does is then takes all that concrete, there's concrete, big, huge chunks of concrete to build that lower base, and then we take riprap rock and put it on top. That's basically what I've talked about. Part of what you need to understand and know is that I went out and got bids from a couple of different local contractors for the material and to deliver materials here. They would have done what you see exactly there for those two bank areas. We spent just now, we paid Anderson Demolition about $7,300 to do both of those cove areas. And if we'd have went outside, it would have been close to $20,000 just for the materials and not including labor. That concrete is given to us free. The concrete we got for those two projects came from home demolitions here, driveways and foundations. There's what you're seeing, and that's Nowita. There's the other one that's what it looked like before. I won't go back to the other slides, but what you saw in Quanta, that's what Nowita looks like right now, is that initial, I'll call it pre-work to put the concrete down. He's got to do the riprap, smaller rock, and he'll do that. Weather has stopped him. So he'll do that in the next few days. So that one will be done. All right, and again, I talked about that, the bank erosion, the work donated by Anderson Demolition. The cost, basically we're getting that work done for about 30 to 40 cents on the dollar of what it would cost us if we had to go to the outside and had to go buy the base materials along with what I call the top dressings. There's low water one. In here, you'll see already, right through there, there was an attempt to riprap that several years ago, and that's granite that's in there, not standard limestone riprap. That's expensive stuff. Well, the weight of it, and without having a sound foundation, has sunk. And when we get our floodings from the rains, it washes the dirt, or it just erodes it. I was amazed. I've only been here 4 years to see what that's went back probably 7-8 feet and continues to it. So the water that runs down the hill and the water that comes out from underneath the road. So we've already started on this. Anderson has provided us a bid. It's $24,200. When you look at what on the budgeted line items, we had roughly $16,000 for seawalls and erosion. We've spent $7,000. We have $9,000 left. So we can't cover exactly everything there. And part of it was, Jim had provided an email to a number of folks on the board that covered in detail what those expenses entailed. And one of the things that has to happen is we have to put a gravel-based pathway down from Kiowa Drive West down, or the large equipment will sink. So that's part of it. The other part of it is we had free concrete from Gainesville, the funeral home in Gainesville, which was demoing their driveways and parking lot, was given to us. When you look at this area compared to the two we did, it's 3 times larger than those two combined. So if we were to go to the outside and contract that and do it, it costs us probably $60,000 to $70,000. So to get this done for $24,000 is a big plus. The only thing is we're going to have to do something to cover up the probably $16,000 that we need, or we'll shortfall the project. We'll stop at some point. We'll do some initial work, but we won't have enough to cover everything. So that's, you know, part of what I'm here for is to talk, you know, ask you as a board, where do we pull the other basically $9,000 from? Or
You may not know this, but we've been talking to Jim about this, Crystal and I have. The 16,000, there's no $16,000 budget in 2021. Not in O&M. Okay.
Was it in 2020?
Yeah, but that's gone.
I understand that.
Okay, so what we've talked about is, I started with the question, Jim, where are you gonna get the 22? When I first saw Jim's email, now, what was that, about a week ago? I said, where's the 24.2 coming? And he said, well, we budgeted that. And so first when I started looking at the budget, and I was not there. And I thought, that doesn't make any sense. And so I went to ARC. I went to FERF and ARC, and I went to ARC. And Crystal and I looked at ARC, and there's
$21,250,000
for seawall
for seawall.
in ARC for this year.
Now, I can go back to 2020 and see if the way that our schedule, if I roll money from 2020 to 2021. Otherwise, I mean, the only amount we have is 21,000.
Well,
21 what?
We have 21,000 on our budget.
Mine is 24.2.
it's 24.2.
Could I ask a question about that? Or is that, in our, I would think that was specifically set aside for some existing seawall, such as that's out front here. I don't know if we've designated that, but it couldn't have been for seawall that doesn't exist. So we're spending money on a seawall that doesn't exist out of ARC. That doesn't make sense.
I understand what you're saying. There's no designation, there's no detail that tells me what that is. But we completely redid all this seawall. If you walk around the lake and look at seawall, I can't see anything that needs repairs. If somebody knows of something, please let me know.
I have a question. Before we had the Lake Management Reserve Fund, we were collecting some money that had accrued, if I remember correctly. I don't remember how much that was. Has that all been spent? Because that was,
It is not.
I thought that was the O&M and that's the type of thing this is.
I understand. Okay, and we decided during the budget period, we would keep that $3.12 going to the CARF for the lake management piece of the CARF is the big, inside of CARF is FERF, Ham, Spillway, and the little lake management fund. The $12.50 goes to a designated fund. The $3.12 stays in CARF, and you're correct. There is that smaller little lake management. It's got a balance of about 50,000 on it.
Probably,
Right at 50,000. And what Cecil was talking about earlier, cleaning out the silt basins, that's what that money's for. Is every other year to clean the rotating silt basins of all three of those portals.
Okay, good information, so money in that fund, so for silt removal at some point, money in ARF receivables, 21,000. So, and now we have the Lake Management Reserve Fund, which could be drawn upon, provided we figure out how to do it. Then you have a question?
Yeah, the question I have, I know the committee, what y'all done is really good, okay? Do you work with the community manager and with Chris on what's going on here?
Work with Chris.
With Chris?
Yeah,
Okay.
with Chris.
Okay. Because as far as for the board, we see a lot of stuff that's going on, money's being spent, but I don't know that it ever comes with us to try to get money approved to do it. And I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, and so we were talking before this meeting, I guess, about that very issue. So that's something I guess you need to relay to Jim, that somehow is part of the charter that they're developing. Yeah, I know we just had a vote for it to come under the general oversight of the Ways and Means Committee. But I think in terms of month-to-month budgeting, I think that needs to come before the board. And, rather than something like this just came up because it
What I'd like to see is I'd call it a project list with, like by quarter, here's what the committee is doing by quarter, here are the projects, here are the estimated costs, so that we've got it in a budgeted process, and the timing. One of the things that pushed us was all of a sudden up came that's probably about $50,000 worth of materials that it cost us that was going to be free, that was going to go away because the funeral home was going to dispose of it. We get that for free. Matter of fact, as of today, I found out that we're putting some of that material on site here now because we had to, or we were going to lose it. And if we wouldn't even be able to do anything with that. If you would, Leanne, go to the next slide, because here's an important part you need to know and understand about this. This has the potential for creating a retention pond. We've looked in the past at this land back up in here and purchasing land and building a silt retention pond. We've got one. If we do this work in here first to shore all that up, right along in here, there was a riprap built a number of years ago that's been deteriorated. We could build ourselves pretty cheaply our own silt retention pond by doing, this and then phase two, building that up. And again, letting water flow, but still drop, and then having the easy access to get to it from whichever company we choose. It'll be rather simple for them to dredge that along with low water 2 and low water 3 every 2-3 years, whatever it is. So that's why this project came to the forefront. Is one, it's in phase, and we got the free materials unexpectedly. And I don't know what that cost was, if anybody had an estimate of going and purchasing land back in there. I know there's a lot that was involved.
Okay, so you're saying the committee's preference is to do it back this side instead of going west of number one.
Oh,
Okay,
absolutely.
okay.
Because it saves a whole lot of money.
Right, okay. Sam?
Yeah, another question. I read Jim's email that he sent out.
Sure.
And for the $24,200, what exactly are we getting? It kind of indicated to me that all this we were getting out of it is hauling materials from Gainesville and depositing it.
And it's building the road down that comes down. Right there's the driving, right? Down this way, through here, I'll call it the gravel path, it's gonna be a path for the heavy equipment. Build it, and then building, dropping that material in and building that.
So they will be dropping the material on there, it's not just putting it out there on the park.
No, we're putting it in.
Okay.
Have to get the road in place first. That, we'd really love to take the materials and bury it immediately. Because we're gonna hear from some folks, it's gonna sit there and it's gonna look ugly and he's already got it.
Speaking of the property on the west side, the LKSUV, the son owns that property. Jim Fox,
Yes, that's just one comment. I'm all for free materials. When they bring that concrete in, are y'all watching that really close to rebar and extracting all of that for safety purposes?
We worked with Chris and, he's already been working with Jake Anderson now with them. The rebar will be cut out of it, will be forged out of it. So we clean, it gets cleaned up as part of the project. The important part is we'd really like to take it and stick it down to the first thing that has to happen here, we got all kinds of money in granite sitting there that's just sunk. We're gonna get it out, clean it up, and that's what's gonna be the top dressing. We don't even have to pay for all of the top dressing that goes on. And just so you know the figure, that's about a 300-foot stretch, and again, it was 120 feet for Newita and Quanah combined. So it's about 3 times the length.
Sorry.
Yeah, the 24-2, is that a finished project?
Yeah.
Everything, not just dumping the concrete,
No.
but it's coming back,
Yeah.
digging out your granite, doing the pathway down there for the heavy equipment and any further needed riprap that you need for the topping.
Yeah, we're gonna use that granite. I mean, we're hoping that there's enough granite. We can't see all of it or much of it because it's sunken. We're believing there's enough there to cover everything.
Good. I'm going back to our schedules that we had before and to confirm what Clark said, there's, out of that 2021 budget, there was 40,000. We had 2026, about 40,000 that was coming in. So there's about 80,000 that was coming out of those CART funds. And then there's, by the end of 2021, there should be about 287,000 total in lake management, and you add 80,000 to that over that period of time. So that's how much total money they have. But then I have a question to somewhat to Sam's point, or your point, Rick, about a budget. I've seen some plans where to spend the money over time, but I've never seen a budget, or another budget's never, I don't think, have been approved by the board. And I would think and that was to their point, I think, is that we should have because this is a fund building up money, we should at least annually approve a budget that you guys propose and say, here it is, this is why we're gonna do it, and we would approve that budget. Because now what you told us before was you're gonna go do retention clean out in a couple of places, and then in a couple of years, you're gonna do the silt removal, but now you're spending the money on seawalls. So that's why we need that.
Well, yeah, I understand, yeah. The initial started as 2 small projects that were $7,000 that supposedly Jim believed we had in unspent money.
It is there. I mean, it's just how you spend it. That's what we need to be able to see before it goes like that.
Okay, any further additions to that other stuff? Okay, so here's what happened. It is free material, they're moving forward on it, sounds like a pretty good deal. I think it'll be worthwhile. I propose we use what's in ARF for 2021 for it, and the remainder, 3,000 roughly, from lake management reserve. Part
Big one or little one?
the big one. So do we have a second on that one? Steve seconds it. Okay, comments, questions?
So that would make, so that would say that any further seawall adjustments have to be made this year if something happens on one of our seawalls, it'll also come out of the Lake Management Fund.
And like you said, I think they need to come in and begin laying it out and all in front of us. And I think I heard Cecil say quarter. I think I like the idea of quarterly better than annual because things come up, like just like this. So
We met yesterday, and what we talked about is that what we've identified from the category of erosion and seawalls, there wouldn't be anything more this year.
I agree.
I agree with you.
Unless something happens.
Yeah, that's my concern is that our money was for existing seawalls, and if something happens to them, we get hit by a boat or something, we have to fix it, or it has to come out of that art schedule. Or whatever.
okay, and our chief financial officer, is that all a good way to handle it? Okay. Okay, so we may even need to roll some of that forward to 2021 and maybe take none out of like management or reserve fund. So I'll amend my own motion then to say if she finds some additional funds in 2020 are scheduled to go forward, then that would offset any that has to come out of LKPOA. So Steve, do you second that?
Yeah, what she's talking about. It's not like there's a bunch of money sitting in ARP of 2020. There could be some money there that we haven't yet done the Ways and Means audit with Brent. So everything will get audited in 2020. If it didn't get spent, then that's where we put that red square. All the red squares get hit and everything pushes out. That just hasn't been done yet. Yeah, you can't just spend it. The red squares are going to go through the audit. The red, yeah, you got to go through the Ways and Means audit, and Brent and me and you and Brian were going to be meeting, or a bunch of us, whoever's going to be meeting after y'all get through the audit. We're all going to sit down. We're going to go through the audit or the ARP. We're going to go through several. Okay, and that's one of the items that has not occurred yet for 2020. So the red dots aren't here yet. Okay, so that I knew Jim's question. Right?
But it's safe to say we can make those.
Yeah, it's great minds think alike.
It's needed, right?
You really don't make adjustments next year on ARP. You really are never making an adjustment on ARP rolls forward. And we'll have to look at ARP and reset the ARP rate based on where we stand on that audit. And the next budget cycle.
But as I said earlier, I've already talked to some of the managers about some things about ARP that I think they need to look into. Right. And we're going to talk about those items as well.
So it would be more appropriate than to just do this my original.
It would be. It would be.
Okay. I'll amend my motion then. To go with the 20, solely from the 2021 ARC amount as supplemented from the Lake Management Reserve Fund to go up to a maximum of $24,200. Okay. You still good with that? Further questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, I see a hand way up there in the corner. Okay, motion passes unanimously.
I would thank you for that. And my job now will be to get materials put in place as quickly as possible. The first two smaller projects were not highly visible to the community. This one is, people will wonder what's going on when they start seeing materials sitting alongside the road. As quickly as we can, we'll get it put in place.
Okay, anybody in the gym that would like to start seeing a budget to approve. So you got something else to?
Well, I was just based on what he's saying, because people are gonna ask questions, we might put a communication out.
We've already jumped on that.
Last question.
Well, we were negotiating with the funeral home to hold on to the materials. They've already pushed it back a couple of times, and it was like,
No, she just tells them.
no, I know, but you hate doing things without people knowing about it, and especially something like that, because the phone calls and the pictures are gonna come pretty quickly, you know.
Okay.
Okay, I guess under additional business, we're gonna take the number of questions that were submitted online ahead of time. So first one was from Mr. Garner, lot 690. Is the board planning on any rule changes regarding lake activities to include wake surfing? It seems one member of the community is allowed to wake surf, while everyone is told that it against the rules bylaws. The rule bylaws should either be changed to be inclusive to all members of the community, I guess, or enforced on all members. So first question, we are not planning to make any changes to encourage wake surfing here. It's just too much damage on our seawalls and our shores and further silt infiltration. So we don't want to do anything to encourage it. Second, there is one member of the community that has that right based on a legal situation. So essentially, this person is grandfathered. That right, and it was done based on the community manager, the board of directors, and our legal counsel. And so that. Likewise, we have many things around the community where things are grandfathered, whether it be the location of a boat shed or the size of your boat dock, or a lot of different things that were in place when a rule was passed and they are grandfathered. So we don't change the rules because somebody else is grandfathered. And I don't think we're planning to in this case. So anybody got anything to add on that? Or
I asked a question earlier, and I think we need to clarify that a little bit, that there are rules around that one exception as to where they can go on this lake. And how they may do that.
That's right. And just my initial conversations from when I saw this, Gerald Smith believes there are rules. We do need to find those documents to clarify that. So make sure security is aware of it.
Security has the documents.
Yeah. Second one came from D. Daly, lot 950. Says, I was told that if I want to give a presentation that would lead to a profit from my business, that I would have to pay $500 to rent the assembly room. Is that true? If so, that is grossly overpriced. I would argue that paying dues to the POA should be enough to host an educational meeting that our residents could benefit from. So Steve Wunderlich has agreed to respond to this question. Take a look, Steve.
I researched this, and she really is just having an informational situation. There will be no sale going on, so I don't think he's starting at the $500. It's has to do with Medicare and the different things that are going on right now. And she lives here and she's trying to educate people as to what options are out there right now. She's not going to be selling anything.
Okay, so educational, but if somebody had a business and they were regularly using our room as part of their business, we would charge, is that correct?
Yes, she wanted the whole room, she does, she's hoping a bunch of people are gonna come. And there's a lot of people that are confused right now with Medicare and what's going on. So, but yes, if they were selling, then they would pay $500.
I think that's fair. I don't think we want our facility used constantly for as part of people's business without some compensation. And of course, we want to make sure that it doesn't impact the use from our other members.
All right, and then we have a couple people out in the audience. Anybody got any questions? Yes, sir.
Bill 1759, on behalf of card players throughout the community, with a poker or bridge or national. It was unclear from Brian, and this question is directed towards you, and I have one other question. I don't think, yeah, it is on. I'm sorry. From my notes, 6 foot was still in place. Masks were optional and 75%, but I was confused as to about card playing here within the lodge.
Card playing will be acceptable as a club activity or a gathering here in the lodge, but we're not gonna have, 40 people in the southwest room. It's gonna have to be dependent upon the number in the rooms in the setup.
So it's on a case by case basis, do we need to check with?
Yeah, Penny will help you with the scheduling for that. And we, want to see the bridge ladies and men come back and enjoy that, as well as the poker players as well.
All right.
That's a big part of the social aspect of our community.
I understand. And that's effective
Wednesday.
Wednesday. All right. The second question was, I guess, for Rick. I haven't seen a lot about the annual meeting. Will details be coming out as to when, where, and, well, I know when, but is it going to be just online or?
No, I think we're setting it up for
75% in this room. Yeah,
Right.
100 plus.
170. So
I believe you have that's on my report.
right, yeah. So up to 170 can show up.
Details to follow. Details to follow.
But we will also make it available via Zoom, YouTube, so for people to watch.
Thank you.
Is one?
It's this coming Saturday.
Right. Yeah, it's this Saturday at 6 p.m. So, Randy Howard.
Randy Howard, locked in 14. Just to touch a little bit on what Jim said. Brian, any input or like anything related to the poker group or assistance now, I'd be more than willing to have this.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
One of the things that I helped kick off when we started it. So it's been a long time. I can give you a little history and understanding and some thoughts or pointers if you wish.
Great. Thank you very much.
And lastly, on the golf course, talk about park usage. I'm all for whatever y'all decide to do. I know it's currently with me being one bad wing, I'm not out there playing, but I'm sure watching a lot. And it's amazing for me, living on the golf course, how many people drive right next to the golf park path the whole length of it, not on it. So it's defeats the purpose of it. They just don't pay attention to it. And I don't know how we can police it.
Can I say something relative to Jim's question and the poker and the cards?
Yeah, go ahead.
And the use of the lodge, I think, and I mean, the board can agree or not agree, I guess. But I think or at least me as a board member, I'd like to say that while the state is opening up on Wednesday, and we're effectively opening up things wider, I think it's still important for each individual to make a decision of what risks they have when they come here or go anywhere. And we're just following state guidelines and what we can handle as an organization. But each person really should see where they are with their vaccine or if they've had the sickness and just the risk is on them individually to get together.
I agree, and I think what I heard Brian say about the 6 foot is that our signs are going to remain up, encouraging people, but we're not going to be out there with a tape measure, whacking them with it when they come 5.5 feet. Right? So personal responsibilities, as Jim said. Okay, I think that's all for our regular session. We can take a break, but we need a motion
to adjourn from regular session to go into executive session. So Steve is so moved. We have a second. Second, all in favor of going for adjourning from regular session, going to executive session. Say aye. Okay, motion passes. Okay, let's be back in 10 minutes.